we all have protocols. We all have learned the same friggin' things. It's like, are you smart enough to be asking the right questions, put it together? Do you have the integrity?
So it's no longer a zero-sum game. Organic visibility has expanded beyond Google.
Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Today's guests are Cliff Skelliter, founder and creative director of Sky Story Creative, and Prashant Puri, co-founder of AdLift. Cliff leads an Indigenous-led agency blending brand, storytelling, and community insight, and also heads the Indigenous Core, a tech initiative for inclusion and transparency. Prashant's firm is a global performance marketing powerhouse trusted by brands like PayPal, known for building scalable SEO and AI-powered strategies. In this episode, Cliff and Prashant share how top agencies are winning trust, breaking silos, and standing out in a fast-changing AI-driven market. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watch on YouTube. It's great to have you here, Cliff and Prashant. Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. You know, you come from very different sides of the agency world, one grounded in cultural storytelling and identity, and the other built on data, scale, and performance. But you're both shaking things up in how agencies actually show up for clients, which I think is amazing. So I want us to start off by unpacking this and just diving deeper into the conversation. Now, what would you say are 2 or 3 qualities that you believe set top agencies apart as true strategic partners, and then in doing so also just elaborate how you actually model that at your agency?
I mean, I think it's just building deeper, more meaningful conversations and really understanding, looking at companies and taking a more empathetic approach to it. I think at one point there was like this playbook of when you work with a client, you have a client manager and the client manager speaks to some person on their end. And it's like everything's kind of not disconnected, and it doesn't feel like it's real. And I think because I didn't come up in that model, I just naturally build relationships. I love building relationships. I always talk to the fact that it's like, what are we trying to do here? We're just trying to build rapport. How do we do that? Well, we find the commonality. What's the commonality? We build rapport, and then we build connection. Once we have connection, we could build from there. And there's no different with what I'm doing with my client than what we're doing with their target audience. And so really taking a human-centered approach to it. I know that could sound maybe a little bit cheesy to some people at some point, but if you're really focused in on it and you're really paying attention to that type of stuff, looking at the world around you and really understanding how people are operating, what their interests are, what their behaviors are, and taking a more less of a demographic view of things and more of a psychographic view of things, I'm finding that there's a lot more success in really connecting with like really loyal audiences, especially in a very pragmatic world, like a very fragmented world.
And then Prashant, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, I think for agencies, having foresight becomes really critical. So, in a couple of examples there that come to mind is, back in 2015, 2014, when, SEO was, really ramping up. It was, 8-9 years into Google, and Google overtaking Yahoo as the largest ad network. One of the key differentiating factors between Yahoo and Google as a search engine was Google gave a lot of importance to backlinks and content on third-party sites and blog sites. So we actually created and started to create our own marketplace there, because we thought that that's essentially what's going to make the differentiating factor. And fast forward now 10 years down the line, our platform ContentLift drives upwards of 10 to 12k backlinks on a monthly basis for all clients, and that's one of the key, I would say, differentiating factors that clients would come up saying that you guys make this a lot more easier. The second, in the whole foresight was 12 months ago, clients were asking us, hey, how do we track our mentions on ChatGPT and Perplexity? There isn't a ranking tool that actually does that. So we went ahead and built Tesseract, which is our ranking tool. So I think foresight is critical. Second, to Cliff's point, integration. So typically agencies, for the most part work in silos. And I think a true strategic partner believes in integration, because at the end of the day, you're looking at revenue and leads and not, traffic and clicks or, CPC. I mean, these are all important to an agency where you're optimizing for these factors, but at the end of the day, as a strategic partner, what the client is looking for is the outcome aligned to why I've hired you. So I think integration becomes really critical across each channels. And then lastly, we're very data driven, so accountability. I mean, if we're not moving the needle, then we're not making a dent, and that becomes really critical. So setting up KPIs as a true strategic partner and being held accountable becomes important in that partnership.
Can I add to what Prashant just said, because I want to build off something, because he makes such a great point. There was this movement at one point where everybody was trying to consolidate under one house, one umbrella. Like, this company does everything you could imagine, right? And that was scary for a little bit, right? These big agencies, like, how do you compete with that? But what ended up being the result of that is that the work isn't as good for some reason. And when independent providers, vendors of Prashant's company or a company like what I provide, when we work together, it just creates a more potent way for clients to be able to get the most bang for their buck, I guess, because we're able to be so much more competitive, not just price wise, but even our attitudes are more competitive, right? We want to show that we could do better work than these juggernauts, right? And so, yeah, I really wanted to build on that. I think that's really important in the ecosystem, that when companies like us, it's this yin and yang that's really beautiful, that works together nicely.
Walking me through the exact steps that you took to land one of your biggest clients, that ultimate client that you've had. And then what about your positioning really stuck with them?
I've got so many of these stories of having to because you do you're doing whatever it takes to get a client, right? You really want to impress them, and especially when it aligns, you set up these clients where that would be the best client, that would be such a fun client to have, and so you kind of in a way manifest it, it's not it's happening in a magical way, but in a way that you're taking the actions necessary to make it come into your life. And so I'll give you this example. I was brought in on a project already, okay? And it was to do design for a Princess Diana exhibit. And this exhibit was going to travel around. And my job was to do the brand identity. So a mark and some other assets, right? And during this process, I was like, tell me more, tell me about the exhibit. How's it going to work? How's it going to look, right? Asking questions, which goes back to this idea of one size fits all. Don't ever do this, because ask questions, ask all the questions, be annoying with the questions, right? Even if they're a little annoyed at you because they're I'm so tired of explaining this, just keep asking the questions, because little gems come out every single time. And they were basically it's not really we hired an art director for this, and it's not really working out. And right then I was like, well, here's my opportunity. I'm I have an idea for this, right? Just because I've been thinking about this, I have an idea for this. And they go, okay, let's hear it. And I pitched them this idea. And really, this was 2021, 2022. We were just kind of coming out of the major part of COVID, where everyone was locked down. Everyone was binging TV shows. The Crown was really popular, all these docu-series. So I was like, how about we do it where every room in this exhibit is an episode of a TV show? So we call it a first of its kind interactive walkthrough documentary. I don't know where that came from. That just blurted out of my mouth. And they were like, oh, I like this. How does it work? I'm like, well, do you want to hire me for the role?
Cheeky.
Yeah. But also I'm like, I don't really have it figured out, Yeah. I didn't really know yet. And they were like, let's do it. What in your background? And I had to kind of patchwork some stuff I've done to say that I could do this, because I have never done this exact thing. And they did it, and I became the art director for this Princess Diana exhibit that launched in Santa Monica, got a ton of attention. We ended up in People magazine, and all you name all of these major publications covered us. We went to Washington, Chicago, Toronto, and this thing travels around the world. And it was so fun, because what ended up happening too is they asked me to step up as the spokesperson. And so I did that. So I don't know. That's kind of a story of like just taking the opportunities, feeling confident, but also doing the prep work. I did a ridiculous amount of prep work to make sure I was ready and capable of doing this job.
So I think over the years, up until starting AdLift, one of the key learnings was I was working with eBay, I was working with Yahoo, and we had client relationships, and I was always asking myself, what's the perfect client relationship, what's the perfect partner or an agency. And those were certain takeaways that I would take some notes on the side. Like for instance, when we had a couple of agencies pitch for the eBay business, which I was managing back in the day across search marketing and SEO, a couple of agencies just show up and throw up, right? It was like a one size fits all, and you could pretty much figure out that if they were talking to a Walmart, or if they were talking to an Amazon, or if they're talking to anyone else, it would be the same deck, because it's just it's a bunch of information which doesn't have any takeaways. And when you would ask them, okay, what are some of the key takeaways here for eBay, they'd be, hey, that's my secret sauce. That's when you'll only find out. And I'm like, no, I want to know. It's not like we're stealing stuff, but you do the homework. There was this one time we were looking to at AdLift, very early days, we were looking to hire a PR agency to get a lot of the word out. And in the room, you had a lot of the senior folks, and you had some folks pitching for our business, and this was a large PR agency. We were obviously very small for them, but at that point, if we are too small for you, don't show up, because you had a lot of the senior execs on their phones and texting while the pitch was going on. So I'm like, okay, this is another thing at AdLift we would never do. So these are certain learnings that I would kind of take, and I remember putting all of this together, where we got the opportunity to pitch after I started AdLift for the PayPal SEO account. And we went pretty much all guns blazing. We didn't think of this as a pitch. We thought that we were already working with the client. So we would go in, it was like a 60-70 page deck that we put together with everything that wasn't working for PayPal. And they loved it. They're like, nobody's put in so much effort. And that's kind of been our playbook ever since, where we really don't care about, the idea is you're spending an hour and a half with us, go away with some key takeaways. And if you want to be a partner, we're here to do that, right? It's not like if I give you, X, Y, and Z, you're going to take it and become a multi-billionaire, and, you're not going to do right by me. I mean, there would be certain companies that would do that, but, I like to believe in that utopian world, and it kind of, the good karma comes back. So I think that's what's really held us in good stead, is we kind of give it 100% whenever we're there for those big pitches, which has helped us sign on, some big logos.
This is why I like Prashant so much, because we think so much alike, man. Because you've got abundance thinking as opposed to scarcity thinking, right? Some people believe in order to be the tallest building in town, they have to tear down every other building, right? As opposed to true development and true progress, where you just build a bigger building or a different shape of building, because you don't need to have the biggest building, right? And this concept of like, it's almost like some companies treat what they do like it's some degree of mysticism, like it's some mystery, like we can't give away our secret sauce. It's like, relax, you don't have a secret sauce. We all have protocols. We all have learned the same friggin' things. It's like, are you smart enough to be asking the right questions, put it together? Do you have the integrity? Are you fun to work with? Because that also matters, right? And like, do I trust you? But like, to act like you have some sort of like, this was always a thing that's driven me crazy. It's like, something that nobody else knows. It's like, to me, like every con that's ever happened begins with somebody coming forward saying, I know something you don't know, right? So follow me. And it's like, come on, guys, relax. Not true. Give it away. Go in, share. Like this idea too, like how insecure are you? Sorry, I'm talking a little trash here. But like, how insecure are you that you're like going to steal my idea? Like, you think you're only going to have one good idea in your entire life? Like, take the idea, go. Go. If you want to take the idea and go do something, you get to live your life like that. But you've just given up the 1,000 other ideas I'm going to have. You don't get to work with me because it's not the only one I'm going to come up with.
Yeah. And that's the partner that you don't want, right? Because we worked with two companies within the same field. Okay, and this is true story. Company one, we kind of doubled or tripled. It was a while ago revenue, and they came back saying, "You're getting X. You've done 2X. I'm going to give you 4X. Can you do 8X?" And we're like, up for the challenge. That's awesome. Same field, same category, a competitor. We do whatever, 1.5, 2X. They're like, okay, we're going to give you half an X. Can you do 4X? I'm like, that's not the partner that I'm looking at. Like, why would I so that's why you're like, you want to like shake them up and say, that is not the long-term partner, because I just increased your revenue. You gotta work with me because I'm also running a business here. And that's something that, a lot of clients get. So it's not like all clients would think of, reducing, but there are these edge cases where I'm like, you just lost a really good partner. So all the best.
I think that they they become one-trick ponies, right? And they don't, if you don't have kind of like expanded thinking and openness to like, you get locked into like this one idea, this is the way, because it worked for them once, or maybe even twice it worked for them, and it was like such a great feeling, like, oh, all their dopamine went, they went nuts because this thing worked, and because the stars aligned in that particular context. So their mind made a case for themselves that they could just reapply this, and they're unfortunately incorrect, and it's they lose out because of it, and it makes me feel bad for them, quite frankly, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would say, and this is feedback that we get from partners who enjoy working with us, is like it's a two-way street, right? So I mean, I'm not the only one who's generating revenue for you. You are running the show, and I think a lot of time agencies want to take all the credit, and that's another pitfall where you kind of forget that it's both the client on the other side also has a day job, and they're pushing your recommendations through, they're making things happen, and that's why it's collaborative. So our team always gives its due. I mean, it's our job is to make sure not only does the client do well, but the folks that are representing the client, and this could be the director of SEO or the director of paid search, they get promoted, they do well. Mm-hmm. And that's where it becomes a win-win situation versus saying, hey, if I wasn't here, none of this would have happened. No, there'd be someone else there.
We're there to make them look good. Like, imagine like you were introducing like somebody to a date, like you're hooking your friend up with a date, right? And you're like, I'm going to make you look really good, but you keep jumping in, trying to make jokes and like you'd be like, wait, what are you doing here? Are you trying to get the date, or are you trying to hook me up with the date, right? You're sabotaging the whole thing. It's like, we have an internal joke. Like we always joke around when like somebody will ask like who came up with this or whatever. I always joke like all me. I did it all. I did everything. We just all laugh, right? Because it's such a silly concept. Constantly when you put work out in the world, even your friends and family will do it. Like they want to know who internally came up with it. And I just refuse to tell them. Like, I'm not going to tell you, because I just think that's a dangerous road to go down of being like, who came up with it? Yeah, you know what? I may have made a noise that made somebody think of something that like we're all doing this together.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Prashant, I'm going to my next question now. Just picking your brain a little bit more here. I mean, SEO itself, right? It often sounds commoditized. So how do you make AdLift's pitch sound like a business strategy, not just a traffic play?
The most important part, which with something through, before even starting AdLift, was PPC, paid search, paid social, the other parts of performance marketing. Google kind of gives you all of the information. Meta gives you all of the information. It tells you that if you spend $100 and each click is $1, you can make 300 or 200 or 500. This is your ROS. So it's extremely out there for you to manage. Whereas SEO has always been a black box where most clients have been burnt, if not once, twice, because the agency is concentrating on paid search and showing that as the key performance indicator because they've not decoded the black box. At AdLift, I think we spent enough time to understand how SEO works. So I wouldn't say obviously not 100% of the time, but we have a pretty good success rate. Like 80-85% of the clients we work with would see an uplift within the first 3 to 6 months. And we set that expectation, right? So some of the clients will be like, it takes so long. We're like, yeah, it takes so long because we got to figure out, because every website is different and every website, Google reacts with every website very differently, even if you're selling the same thing, right? That's the way it works. And we need to do a number of things. We've got it because we've done it for the last 15 years, but we need to do a couple of things to figure out what would work for you. That takes 3 to 6 months. So setting expectations with clients and then setting KPIs that you're going to track against and making sure you're not moving the goalpost within the first 3 to 6 months is what builds trust. And even if they see like a 5% or a 10% increment, you've come up trumps because they're like, nobody set that expectation and did what they were supposed to do. Maybe you said you'd do 30%, but you've come up in the first 3 to 6 months at, 15-20%. I'll take that. Great. Let's do more of it. And then that's where the plan and all of that happens. So a lot of communication and a lot of trust building to ensure and obviously, getting their buy-in, because lots of times when we are in a pitch call, the questions when it comes to us, we're asking them, have you allotted a team to get the job done, or do you want us to make those changes on your website or content, all of that? And they're like, hey, what do you need from us? And we're like, this is what we need for you, because if you don't have this in place and you sign us on after 3 months, you're going to say, hey, nothing worked, and that's the situation we don't want to. So get that team in place that can actually work closely with us to get the job done. So I think a lot of those early conversations before even signing on the client is helpful in building out the KPIs and results moving forward.
So true. Cliff, over to you. I've got a question to pick your brain as well. I mean, as Sky Story's positioning draws from Indigenous-led storytelling and immersive branding. So how have you used that foundation to create like meaningful differentiation in your agency's pitch or your process?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good question. One of the terms we like to use is interpretive design. And I think that really anchors us, because really what we're trying to do is, Indigenous design is a big part of it. But even myself, I'm a mixed culture, right? My father's from Trinidad. My mother's Indigenous, right? And we have a mixed group of people with their own perspectives and their own kind of stories. And one of the things that I learned through Indigenous design, is I love the processes. I love the processes and the culture of a lot of Indigenous communities, because there's a lot. Sometimes we think of Indigenous people as a monolithic group. That's not the reality of it. There are so many different Indigenous communities on Turtle Island, North America, right? With different belief systems as well, and different traditions. I love the idea of knowledge keepers. The people that keep knowledge in the community, and elders, and the different teachings. And so I actually use a lot of that in the way we look at, the way we build out our campaigns or our brands or our communications. Is like, speak to the people that have the knowledge keepers of any particular community. And you could look at that as a target audience, if we want to use that term, like that, a lot of people understand. Well, who's the knowledge keeper of that target audience? Why not go speak to them, right? Or we could call them influencers, but they don't necessarily influence. They just kind of know the lay of the land, right? And so you try to consult with those people and have conversations so you truly understand it. There are certain sub-communities that we all naturally understand because that's a part of our interests, right? I don't know what you guys were interested in growing up, but me, I was obsessed with hip hop. You know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I was obsessed with hip hop, right? I listened to, Big Daddy Kane and J. Rue the Damager. And I love the whole story and the mythos behind how, hip hop grew in New York and all of that stuff. I love stand-up comedy. I remember watching Eddie Murphy Raw and Eddie Murphy Delirious when I was a kid on repeat to the point where my VHS tape broke. Okay. And I tried to tape it back together, but it didn't work for me in this particular case. Like, you have to be from that era to understand those little like insights that if you're not from that era, you don't know those things. Just like if I'm not part of a certain community, I don't know the little inside things that make something authentic. Because we could talk about things in broad strokes, but when you wink at an audience or give them a little Easter egg that says, listen, I'm signaling to you that I get this, right? And so understanding just that little concept of find the knowledge keeper of this community and speak to them. And then you could use that to really build out something that like has some good power and meaning.
Which part of your agency story or positioning do you think is powerful, but like clients really comment on?
I think just being heavily reliant on automation and tools for tracking at the back end. So, I think what we've seen in the last, 12, 15 years is that there's a lot of, if there's no tracking in place, there's a lot of loss of information. And that kind of results in not the desired result, right? Like, for instance, I sent you a document on whatever, Friday. Where is that? Oh, check the email. Oh, it's not in the email. Oh, I didn't attach it. Like, we're all human. Things like that happen. But over the years, we've got, Dropbox, we've got Box, we've got Google. Like, we should, as an agency, use that. A lot of automation in place now with AI. So I think we're a big believer of tech, even though we're on the agency side. But, we think of ourselves as a martech play just because at the back end, we have a suite of tools that we use, which I think, again, when we onboard a client, this is feedback that we get from them saying that, okay, it's great that you on day one you have all your shit together. You've given us access to Dropbox. The folders are currently empty, but that's essentially where all our files would go. And that's the whole learning curve that even if the client is not used to, is where we do a little bit of hand holding there. So apart from obviously getting the work done and getting the results in play, I think the process of getting there is critical, because otherwise, again, it's that whole trust thing, right? I don't know if you've done this because I don't know how you did this, right? And the how is what actually builds trust. If you can predict that if you go at whatever 50 miles an hour in a 30 zone and you're going to get a ticket, right? And that happens, then that's not the right thing to do, right? And that's why you drive at 30, 35. But if there's nobody stopping you and there's actually no proof in what's actually happening, then you could be over speeding, getting away with it or not. So just having all the ducks in a row in getting to the end goal and making sure that all of that aligned with you hitting those goals becomes critical.
And I must say, Prashant, the one thing that I'm picking up a lot on, which I think that clients are so appreciative of, is that you spoke about Foresight earlier, but it's just your planning process before the plan is even like a thing, before it even becomes like, okay, this is where we're heading. That pre-planning process, you're so much a part of that. And I can actually see the importance in that, in how it like lays the foundation for whichever client you have coming your way. And it's so important to have a very strong foundation before actually moving forward. And I guess in essence, like the question itself, clients really comment on, they don't know what's happening on the back end. And that's where your magic is, because that is what you're doing. You constantly you're in those spaces, and I'm sure that you're also refining that space constantly to make sure that you are always delivering 120% always.
Yeah, and I think with the onset of AI, again, just being an agency, but we've launched our own two platforms, which I think is very unique to an agency, because typically you have a SaaS company or you have an agency, but we've kind of melted the two pretty seamlessly. And I think that's because we're all over here. I have an amazing senior leadership team. They're always challenging themselves on trying out new tools, which ones make the pass and which ones can we actually inform the clients on. And with AI, if we're not on top of it, because every other day there's a new tool that helps you do your job better. And as an agency, we are thought leaders in this space, so we gotta like drink our own champagne and say, okay, this month we've tested out these tools, versus the client coming to you and saying, hey, have you checked this out? Which is fine. I mean, we can't know everything at all at once, but if we kind of take that thought leadership piece on each of these tech platforms, again, it builds confidence. It kind of solidifies that relationship, saying that, okay, these guys are on it and I can let them drive. I don't need to babysit them.
Yeah, so true. Cliff, do you have anything you'd like to add there?
It's always a tricky thing, right? Like, what do people, you have your biases to what you actually hear, right? You know what I mean? Like, people will say a whole bunch of things to you, and then certain things stick, right? Because those are the things that feel like you value. And what we get a lot is they're like, clients are always amazed by like how high touch we are. And what I mean by that is just like how in communication we are, how we're kind of communicating. Even me, I mean, you think about it, you're like I'll just be driving around in the evening on the phone chatting with one of my clients, just like just chatting, because I just, what do they say? Chewing the cheese? No, is that it? No, I don't know. Use that one though. Start using that one. Yeah. I really do. Talk with my clients like a lot, and one of the things I found is like it's like I'm like a psychologist for some of my clients sometimes. And I think that happens, number one, I've just got such an interest in human behavior, so I think naturally my clients find that interesting about me and like chatting about it because I'm interested in it, why people do the things they do. And so we end up chatting a lot, and I end up learning a lot about them. Also, being an entrepreneur can be a very lonely space. It's hard to go home and talk about it. It's hard to relate to your friend that has their 9 to 5 or whatever. It has this potential to be a lonely space. And so when other entrepreneurs get to meet with each other, our stories are, again, remember I talked earlier, it's like you're speaking the same language, right? You get these little references. And so it's kind of fun. And so, yeah, I end up like developing these friendships with my clients. And when we have tough conversations, and we're good at separating that. But I think that's it, like how high touch we are, because I really want to get to know them. And I think that it also, as I understand them more, I understand the pressures of their life more. There's no room for me to mess around, right? I take it very seriously. It's not just like this faceless person, this faceless company I'm doing something for. It's like, man, these people's livelihoods or their whatever it is on the line. So I'm going to make sure I'm the most creative possible, that I'm the most researched possible, but that we also have fun, because joking and kidding around and playing around is a big part of the process. We're having fun, we're loose, we're free, we're in that flow state, and that's when like incredible things could happen. So I think that's kind of the thing that I hear.
How do you balance clarity with creativity in your messaging, especially when working across technical or B2B verticals?
So I think the whole creativity piece comes in where, again, going back to the whole it's not a one size fits all. You can be a Southwest and a United. Google treats you very differently. Your cost per clicks are different. Your performance indicators are different. SEO, traffic, impressions, all of that is different. So I think the whole creativity piece, comes into figuring out how the likes of Google and now ChatGPT and other large language models decoding what's there on your website and what is there on third-party sites, and how are people actually talking about you. And once that's done is when you kind of understand which landing pages, which pieces of your website are doing well versus others, and that's how you start to do all of the fine tuning and the technical SEO and all of that. So I think it just comes, it basically goes back to how well, how much are you kind of rolling up your sleeves to really understand the client that you're working with, and getting creative with areas like the first thing that we do within, I would say, the first 4 to 6 weeks of engagement is a complete technical audit. And there are lots of times during the pitch where the client is like, hey, our technical team is fantastic, these metrics that you've run during the pitch, they look all great, so let's focus on content. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that, because 6 months down the line, if we miss something on the technical side, it's going to come back to us. So we got to, in certain ways, make sure that we've cross the T's and dotted the I's, even though the client feels everything is great, which is fine. We can just give that another check, and make sure that's behind us. So I think overall the whole creativity piece comes into just making sure that you've understood the client, where they are currently in their whole search, SEO, performance journey, as a benchmark. And then once that's done is when you can be, iterative on the recommendations that you shoot over.
Oh yeah, interesting question. Okay, how about this? I'll say one thing. Okay, I'll say one thing. How do you balance it? Hopefully you have enough time to balance it. And I always go to an old Mark Twain quote. Who knows? We credit everything to Mark Twain at this point with quotes. So hopefully he said it. But it's like, sorry, I wrote you such a long note. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter one. And I live by that. So how do I balance it? I hope for enough time.
If you were to look at it now for the next 2 to 3 years, what do you think will be the next real separator between just another agency and the ones clients fight to keep?
So I can't answer that because that's our secret sauce.
Oh my word, touche.
So I would say I would break this out into 2 parts, right? Because we're a performance agency, so we manage media spends across Meta, Google, and then we're SEO too. So on the SEO front, I think SEO is now going way beyond Google. So back in 2019, Google's market share was 94%. Back in 2018, 94%. 2015, 94%. Like, that was the elephant in the room. And for all of us, working on SEO, nothing ever changed. You're just optimizing for Google. And it was a zero-sum game, which was, if that 1% drops out of Google and it falls to a 92, it would go to a Bing or a Yahoo or any other search engine. But now with the onset of ChatGPT, Perplexity, it's no longer a zero-sum game, because people are asking questions that they would never ask a Google. Like, for instance, on Google, you would typically say, what are the top, restaurants in San Diego? But now the search query or the prompt is, I'm spending a 3-day weekend with my family. I have a 14-year-old boy and a 16-year-old boy who has, gluten allergy. Recommend XYZ restaurant. And it's like a 24-word prompt versus a 3-word. So that kind of a search query doesn't exist on Google, right? So it's no longer a zero-sum game. Organic visibility has expanded beyond Google. So as an agency or as a brand, you have to make sure that now's the time to include ChatGPT. Optimizing for AI, optimizing for Perplexity becomes critical. Because, if that's not part of your 2025 roadmap, 2026, I feel, would be too far, because already the LLMs are taking away 10-15% market share on search queries. And it's just, fast expanding. I think by 2028, 29, Google's market share on search queries would probably fall in the 60s or the 50s. So Google would be important, as it always is. It drives revenue, it drives the whole buyer journey. But the informational part, where there's a lot of research happening, is moving towards Perplexity and ChatGPT. So I think that's an agencies that nail that and have that in their repository are the ones that are going to win in the future. So that's on the SEO and organic side. Then there is performance marketing. Now, performance marketing is where a lot of the creativity, a lot of the tech ads, the formats come into play. Which again, if you are not using tools or building tools for yourself in making sure which ads are doing well, and the ability of creating multiple ads. So gone are the days of creating one ad copy with 4 different ad variations and then picking one. Meta is moving to create 100 ad sets for one particular audience, and I'll figure out which one works best for you. So Meta is doing a lot of the work for you, but you have to give it that level of information. So on the performance side, making sure creativity along with performance marketing is now synced is more than critical at this point. So an agency that can provide not only the performance insights but also the creative insights, and they don't work in silos, is the agency that will win on the performance marketing side. So that's, I think, the two sides of that.
So I rebranded a few years ago. That's a whole long story, but I rebranded, and the name of my agency now is Sky Story Creative. At the time it was Launchpad. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Just stick with me, okay? It'll pay off. And the slogan for my brand at the time, which I wanted to keep but I didn't, was "We Speak Human." And that slogan alone won me so much business because it meant so much to so many different people, like what we meant by that. And I still fundamentally believe that in my heart. We speak human, even as an agency in general. And I believe in 2 years from now, it's not going to change when you hire somebody that does what I do for a living, right? You need me to speak human. And it kind of goes back to the other things, the knowledge keepers and the people that are community influencers, and really being able to kind of nail that, like, humanity in the advertisement, in the branding, in the marketing, really being able to nail that as part of, like, whether it's the visual communication or anything that's going out there. And so that's who I believe people are going to want to continue to work with. Now, we're not going to be effective as agencies if we don't use all the tools available to us, right? There is a whole bunch of tools that help us take our ideas, our concepts, and really expand them bigger. There's AI tools, there's all sorts of tools that help us, that once we kind of have it, it can help build things out for us a little bit more, and to a certain degree. Also helps with research, helps with a whole bunch of things. So obviously using all of those tools, but I think down to, like, it's molecular level. It's the agencies that are able to maintain the humanity in what they're doing.
Cliff, Prashant,
Perfect.
That was perfect. It was amazing. You are both so knowledgeable. I appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for joining me here today. You were actually so inspirational, the both of you. It's nice to hear from the guys who are there making it, the entrepreneurs, the guys who are the go-getters, and just, taking that journey and, like, also getting our audience, a little bit of that experience of your journey and just sharing it with them as well. This was lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune in to our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush Podcast and stay ahead of the competition.